Female must have just accidentally drank a sip of my. The next day, she was pregnant the next day. All the brothers and sisters in the sect all gave me thumbs up. Their admiration for me was like the flood of the Yellow River out of control. But at this time, I was confused. How could it be my child? Such disrespectful behavior would be criticized by others. However, what I didn't expect was that the master pointed at me and said the child is yours. Don't just take advantage and run away. It's completely over. No matter how I defend, no one would believe me. I froze in place completely. The originally solemn atmosphere under the master's finger completely turned into some kind of indescribable frenzy. I looked at Ji Kingen. He is the first sword fairy of Kingyun sect. At the age of 300, he has reached the fusions. His frost sword key around him at the great perfection should have made the area barren. But at this moment, his eyes that only had cold sword intent, were actually glowing with a strange red. What's even more terrifying, his originally flawless pure lotus heart had a tiny crack appear in it. What came through was the same ancient desolation aura as mine. When he said that sentence was not loud, but it was like a thunder from the sky, which directly shattered the values I had built for 20 years. I could feel that. The elders on both sides of the hall who usually, elders with unfathomable cultivation, at that moment, all moved their butts in unison. The originally golden core and infant stage all removed their protective spirit for fear, missing every detail of this shocking gossip. It turns out that age doesn't matter. However, in the immortal world, this kind of bloodline resonance is more conclusive than any identification. Jiang Cheng, you've grown up. The one who spoke was the real master, a saint-level old monster, although he was trying to suppress the upturned mouth. But his twinkling eyes clearly said, good boy. Ji Kingen practiced the ice muscle and jade bone of Loveless. His solid true essence is so strong that even Dao Qi, you can break his defense, and planted the seed deep in his origin. The gasps of my 3,000 fellow disciples behind me has almost drained the spiral energy in the hall. I can hear the second senior brother using his spiritual sense. No wonder junior brother Zheng is only at the peak. It turns out that all his essence, all condensed into that drop of origin liquid. This is not saliva. This is simply a weapon of causality that can penetrate the defense. I was speechless. In their logic, can make a cultivator in the combined is definitely not something that a mouthful of my current defense was not only an excuse for me. Seeing that I didn't speak, a faint sneer curled up at the corner of his mouth. The teasing in his eyes made my bones chill. At this time, the sect leader finally, according to sect law, this kind of behavior of ditches and defiling the sect. For others, they would be abolished and be thrown into abyss. But since Kingen is pregnant, and Jing Cheng has a special body, can shake the Dao heart of the combined stage with Qi. This is God's blessing to our Kingyun sect. In that case, then change the punishment to N. 3 days later, Qingfeng will marry. Jiang Qing will and never leave his master within 100 until the birth of the child with God-level bloodline. I'm completely This is not a marriage. This is clearly putting me, a criminal, into my master's private prison. By the way, but also act as the mobile spirit stone of the monster. On the quiet and cool day, Kingyun sect was decorated. Was even bigger. I was sitting in a chariot pulled by 9. Pulled by a spirit chariot with a big red flower on my chest. Countless talented people and female disciples cried, while the male disciples all gave me the look of big brother, bowing down to me with risks. I even saw the elder in the alchemy room, sneakily gave me a stack of 5-grade dragon essence, and winked at me ambiguously. Seeing this, the only thought in my mind was to die. The cool wind was still the same as the middle-aged snow and cold. Jing stood at the entrance of the side hall. The fiery red wedding dress stood out brightly in the white snow. The spiritual pressure has become extremely unstable, occasionally leaked a trace. Made me a low-level cultivator. Breathless. When all the guests left, the band completely sealed the whole mountain. Ji Kingen's holy and cold face suddenly collapsed. He grabbed my collar with one hand and carried me into the bedroom like a chicken. With a casual wave of he set up a soundproof barrier that even, Master, forgive me, I really didn't mean it. I shouted like a pig. Ji Kingen snorted coldly. He casually took off his robe, revealing the single garment into his skin. Under that single garment, there was a faint golden light in his abdomen. I practiced the pure lotus ruthless path. It should be invulnerable, but in your damn physique contains a force, the ancient desolate power that even I can't suppress. After that thing entered my stomach, it directly bypassed my Neon Palace and went straight to Danshan. This is what it turned into. I looked at his bulging belly with trepidation. I realized that this child was really mine. Then I'm really at a loss. I didn't even enjoy the process. At this moment, Ji Kingen gritted his teeth. Just in the hall. If the fetus goes berserk, the entire Kingyun sect would be buried with me. Hearing this, I just realized this cold teacher was taking emergency He tied me to his side. Is because in this seemingly weak body of mine contains the only sedative for this divine fetus. In the following days, I experienced what is the most leisure imprisonment in the world. At night, I was forced to sit on Honyu's bed, with my hands against Ji Kingen's warm danshan. My thin breath cultivation, the moment it entered his body, would be frantically swallowed by the fetus, and every time I did, my sea of would be widened by a majestic spiritual energy. Widen a bit. In just 7 days, my cultivation base has skyrocketed. I broke through foundation establishment in my sleep to golden elixir, and what made me even more collapsed happened. Just today, I received a secret letter from the saint, a letter from a late nascent soul cultivator. It said that he accidentally touched a drop of my sweat. She accidentally touched a drop of my sweat. I looked at the hand, the pink letter paper with a greasy fragrance, and then looked at Ji Kingen, who was carrying a 9-grade immortal sword. I felt that my life was not over, but completely entered a vicious cycle of gods and demons. I felt the barren golden core in my body. Deserted golden core that exudes a dark I didn't feel the joy of sudden cultivation increase, but instead filled with fear of liquidation. In the immortal world, from key to golden elixir, it takes at least half a year to retreat. Even a genius takes more than 10 years, but I just in Qingfeng. For 7 days as a human battery, in this passive extraction, and a vicious cycle of feeding back, I was abruptly squeezed out by the unborn little ancestor to the golden core stage. Jiu Kingan's eyes on me, changed from initial killing, evolved into a strange gaze at a rare tonic. He sat cross-legged on the bed of jade. His voice was still cold, but his aura, the originally condensed spiritual pressure, now seemed a little ethereal. The little thing is making trouble again. The little thing dislikes the light spiritual energy here, and insists on your blood with the barren essence of your blood. I looked at myself, my fingertips that are already full of red tears in my eyes. This is not cultivation. It's like feeding eagles with meat. My physique, it's called the primordial desolation body. To put it bluntly, is a natural universal spiritual energy converter. I trembled and stretched out my hand, and cut my finger. A drop of blood with a purple gold luster oozed out. I directly pressed it on Jiu Kingan's, obviously bulging abdomen. With a buzzing sound, at that moment, the entire Qingfeng Mountain protective array made a humming sound of being overwhelmed. A powerful suction came from that abdomen. Came from his abdomen. I felt my golden pill spinning wildly inside me, almost being sucked into powder. Jiu Kingan let out a muffled groan. His face instantly flushed, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. The feeling of being connected by blood reached its peak at that moment. I seemed to see through his skin. I saw the baby's phantom was greedily sucking my blood essence. In return, a pure immortal power rushed back into my meridians through my fingertips. My cultivation base moved early, middle, and late golden core. It was about to rush to the infant stage. I roared, if you keep sucking like I won't be promoted. I would explode due to the physical strength, and self-destruct due to it. Jiu Kingan suddenly opened it. With a wave of hand, he abruptly cut off this connection. He gasped for breath, due to the fluctuation. His jet black long hair now had a faint layer of golden and grey. What kind of monster is this child? He looked at me, eyes full of confusion and fear. Jiang Cheng was absorbing your essence, just now. He forcibly shared my perception of the Tao, although you only have the golden core realm now. But the Tao in your mind is probably no less than that of the god stage. I slumped on the ground. I cried in my heart. I'm just a slacker who wants to eat and wait to die insect. Now, I was forced to become a theoretical deity master, a useless golden core in battle. The next morning, I was still dreaming of discussing with the if he could stop staring at me. One sheep is plucked. I was awakened by a deafening sound of swords. I opened the door. The scene I saw will be unforgettable in my life. The Qingyun sect's famous, the mountain protecting formation that even flies can't have, was now filled with black. Were filled with all kinds of top magic weapons. The 9 dragons' perfumed chariot, the Baihua fairy bridge of Wanhua Valley, and even the Shenwu sect's iron-blooded warship. And at the head was the holy maiden of the Hewan sect, the holy maiden of with cultivation reaching you, a beautiful demoness who is charming. She just stood in the air, her voice, empowered by her mana, spreading throughout the Qingyun sect.
Since Jiang Cheng's junior brother has such a magical physique,
it's too greedy for you to monopolize it alone.
Some days ago, I caught a cold, but after drinking a cup of tea, I actually had a spiritual seed in my body. Today, I'm not only here to catch up, but also to find the father of the entire Qingyun sect was silent. Then came terrifying discussions than earthquakes. My god, senior, could it be that he has mastered some kind of cause and effect spawning? A cup of residual seeds? If it really touches it, it would be an instant ascension. I stood on the peak. I felt the murderous intent, enough to freeze the space apart.
Jiu Kingan stood behind me at some point in time.
In his hand,
held the frost sword, which was said to cut off the mortal world.
Pointing diagonally, the snow on the cold wind at that moment instantly turned into ice swords. Jiang Cheng, please explain to me, what's the matter with the Holy Maiden's spiritual seed? I looked at the mountains full of female cultivators who came and then look at the problem in front of me. I only had 2 words in my mind. I screwed up. My physique is not the ancient barren martial arts.
This is simply a universal fertility device in the fairy world.
Master, if I said I just felt sorry for her at that time, and poured her a glass of plain water, do you believe me when I said that? Jiu Kingan didn't speak. He just silently held his sword across my neck with his sword
and shouted coldly at the foot of the mountain, wanting Jiang Cheng.
Ask my sword first. At that moment, I finally
I probably can't just leave without a word in this life.
The shouts at the foot of the mountain rose and fell. The words of the Holy Lady of Wanhua sect was like a thunder on the ancestral grave of was like a thunder. I looked at Jiu Kingan, his face slightly distorted with anger. I felt the true energy in his abdomen. At this moment, I really wanted to die in the immortal world. To break through to the great perfection stage requires an incredible,
but also a ethereal karmic opportunity.
And my saliva with the ancient desolate air, by chance, became the spark to ignite their withered. Jingan's frost sword in his hand made a clear dragon roar. He took a sudden step. The pressure of the great perfection of like the sky collapsing, shaking the clouds around Qingfeng away. Jiu Kingan gave me the choices. First, he would split me in half right now, and then divide me among the women of Hewan sect. The second is to follow him obediently.
I'll kill all these demons who covet my Taoist companion.
Can I still choose? Of course I choose to live. I am a disciple of Qingfeng sect, and I am his ghost. The senses of the Hewan sect is just a fraud. I haven't even touched her hand. I shouted at the top of my
The speed of expressing loyalty was faster than my cultivation.
Jiu Kingan snorted. He grabbed the void with his left hand and directly grabbed my belt. He held me like a human-shaped magic weapon and took me as a shooting star, straight towards the gate. The masters of various sects gathered out.
The senses of the Hewan sect saw Jiu Kingan holding me.
Appeared in person. A trace of greed flashed in her eyes. He gently shook his fan.
And a pink mist of wan filled his body. The fog contains a very strong soul attack.
Even though I have entered the golden core stage, I felt dizzy even by just a glance. Soon Jiu Kingan arrived. He didn't waste any words. He raised his hand and struck with frost.
A terrifying sword energy spanned thousands of feet.
The temperature around instantly dropped. Even the warships hovering in the air began to creak and crack, and fine cracks appeared. With a loud bang, the great powers fought. This
shocked the trees within 100 miles into powder.
I was protected by Jiu Kingan in his... I felt the devastating power outside, but I was complaining wildly. This is not a man stealing. This is clearly 2 immortals are fighting for a bag of high grade. When the 2 were fighting fiercely, I suddenly felt my abdomen. To be exact, in Jiu Kingan's abdomen, there was a very weak, but extremely clear vibration. But at this moment, the little master in Jiu Kingan's stomach spoke. Dad, the aunt in pink has a fox blood. Has a celestial fox blood. It tastes good. Catch some of her origin, true key. I'll eat it as snacks.
Hearing this, I broke out in a cold sweat.
You think your dad is some awesome guy?
Your mother is fighting with someone now.
You asked me to grab one, the primordial key of a late nascent soul. Before I could refuse, my barren golden pill actually reversed uncontrollably.
A greyish airflow followed my fingertips, painted Jiu Kingan's protective
as if it had a spirit, and directly penetrated into the distance. The next second, the Holy Maiden let out an earth-shattering scream. I saw the grey airflow,
and wrapped a dazzling pink streamer,
returned to my body in a flash of lightning, and then it turned around skillfully,
and finally all poured into Jiu Kingan's stomach.
Jiu Kingan's delicate body shook.
The magic power that was originally lost due to pregnancy
was instantly replenished in that moment, and even her breath rose a bit more. She was stunned, turned to look at me in her hand. Her eyes were like looking at an unknown monster, and those, the powerful people from various sects who were still shouting, all shut up at this moment.
Their eyes changed from greed to pure terror.
With just one move,
sucked the origin of a late-stage nascent soul expert.
Could this be something that a peak purifying can do? The whole place was so quiet that the Holy Maiden of the Wan sect, the originally bewitching demonic aura, was now at its lowest point. Now Jiu Kingan couldn't care less about killing. He pulled me to his front.
His cold hands were touching my body,
trying to find the power I was hiding. Jiang Cheng, tell me truth. What happened just now? There was a hint of tremor in his voice. Tremor that he didn't even notice himself. I looked sad, looked at those powerful people who were eyeing me, and then looked at the brothers who admired me. Master, if I said that your son wanted to eat snacks, so he did it himself. Do you believe it? Jiu Kingan looked at me, and looked down at himself, the belly emitting a faint golden light, and fell into a long silence. Just then, the clouds suddenly rolled over, due to the barren aura just now, had robbed too much of the secrets. God seemed to finally sit still. It wasn't an ordinary thunder, but the purple lightning of destruction. It wasn't aimed at Jiu Kingan, nor me, but my unborn son,
who learned to rob in my womb before he was born. Jingen gripped his sword, with a bitter voice. He said he might not be able to withstand the tribulation. If he were to die, let me remember to bring the child. What the hell? The anger of the salted fish in my heart. This life is unbearable. Whose child was born with contemptuous thunder tribulation? Whose wife is pregnant, but also has to take her husband out to kill? The barren golden pill in my seemed to feel my anger. Began to crack wildly, a previously unseen. A power that seemed to come from the depths of filled my limbs and bones in an instant. I pushed Jiu Kingan away, in the astonished eyes of the entire sect and realm, facing the purple lightning that could kill a Mashana cultivator. I pointed to the sky and yelled, "Is it really over? Isn't it just a sip of water? Was it necessary?" I felt so cool and handsome. But the next second, I saw that the purple lightning seemed to be stunned. And then it doubled in size, and came down with a destructive momentum. I turned to look at Jiu Kingan, and awkwardly squeezed out a smile. "Master, what should I do? Is it too late for me to beg for mercy now?" The purple lightning rolled in the clouds, as if it was a little confused by my shout. But then it seemed like a dragon that was completely angered. The lightning changed, turned into a desperate extinction. Black Nine Nether, Black Thunder. This thing is only described in the classics. When crossing the tribulation, if you encounter it, 10 deaths, no life. I felt the devastating pressure above my head. My legs were actually shaking like a sewing machine. But the barren golden pill in my body, but seemed to be energized. Not only did it not break, but instead, like a greedy black hole, forced open every pore of my body. Jiu Kingan went crazy and wanted to rush over to pull me. The Shuangan sword in his hand has been overdriven by spiritual and made a shrill wailing sound. But I couldn't move. An invisible force was pulling me. I know that it was the little ancestor in my stomach. Suddenly, a childish voice came into my ears. "Dad, don't be coward. This is the pure origin of the heavenly Tao." That childish voice, screaming excitedly in my mind. "Your current body is too fragile. How can you carry me without being struck by lightning?" I cursed it in my heart. "Are you using your father as a lightning rod?" With a bang, the black lightning instantly engulfed me. At that moment, I didn't feel any pain, but a very strange sense of fullness. The thunder that could erase the soul hit my body, was instantly assimilated by the greyish, and then Shunger meridians like a flood returning to rush towards my danchan. My golden pill was turned into a nebula-like vortex. My cultivation base was jumping wildly in the lightning. Perfect golden pill. Initial stage of infant. The onlookers, the sect leaders, were completely dumbfounded. A cultivator in the key not only scorned the lightning tribulation, but also swallowed the black lightning like drinking water. The pretty face of the Holy Maiden has been distorted beyond. I didn't even notice the feather fan. I didn't notice it when the last ray of lightning was absorbed by me. The clouds in the sky seemed to be closed off, and dispersed angrily. I stood in the void, was covered in black smoke. The originally gorgeous red robe had turned into a few rags. I awkwardly covered my private parts, and turned to look at Jiu Kingan. Jiu Kingan was still in the pose of drawing his sword. His whole body was frozen in midair like a stone statue. He looked at me, complex emotions in his eyes. Can't be described in words. Was it shock or relief? Or was he looking at a strange monster he had never seen? I spat out a puff of black and my voice was hoarse. I seemed to be a nascent infant. Jingen didn't speak. He slowly put away his and flew to me. He took off his robe and covered me. He stared into my eyes up close. At that moment, I could even see a trace of water in his eyes. He took my hand. This time his strength was astonishing. As if afraid that I would turn into dust and dissipate. Seeing this, those big shots outside the gate wanted to surround me. Jiang Cheng, friend, I am the supreme elder of the God Martial sect. Get out of here. Jiu Kingan shouted angrily. The coercion of the perfect stage swept the audience without reservation. This time no one dared to say a word more, if before they still wanted to rob me. Now, after seeing me devour me shizzy with their own eyes, there was only one thought left in their minds. None of this family is easy to mess with. The older one can kill, the youngest can attract lightning. The father of them, he can eat lightning as his meal. Back to Qingfeng. Jiu Kingan, he directly activated the highest level ceiling array. In the side hall, I held a quilt, sitting in the corner of the bed. Jiu Kingan sat across from me. On the table was my drop, which had been diluted countless times. Jiu Kingan tapped the table with his fingers. The lightning just now, even a great perfectionist, would be seriously. He asked me why I could advance unscathed. I sighed and said, saying that I also know the reason. I pointed to his stomach, and then pointed at myself. This physique is not a cultivation physique at all. It's a kind of medium. It can turn all the violent forces in the world into the most primitive vitality. The Thunder Fist just went into your stomach. Into that little, I'm just a passerby, and picked up some cultivation residue. Jiu Kingan's expression completely froze. He looked down at the obviously bulging belly. I told him, this little thing is becoming more and more picky now. The spiritual energy of the mortal world. Today it eats, and maybe something else tomorrow. As soon as I said, the voice sounded in my mind again. Dad, the ant from the one sect's taste is really average. Let's go to the Shenwu sect next time. I heard they have a 10,000-year cloud iron mother. It must be very chewy. I didn't dare to say this out loud. Jiu Kingan suddenly stood up, and came to me. The cold plum blossom scent came again. He didn't sneer at me as usual, but slowly bent down,
gently pressed his forehead against mine,
and then blushed slightly,
and looked at me firmly.
From today on,
you are no longer a disciple, nor a prisoner of marriage. You are my only Taoist companion, Jiu. Whether this child will be a god or a devil, we will bear it together. I was stunned. I looked at the recognized first iceberg goddess, and looked into her eyes full of seriousness and protection. The corner of my heart that was lazy seemed to be filled with something. I took a deep breath.
I was about to say something touching,
but then the voice in my stomach ruined the atmosphere again. Oh my god, Mom, don't be so sentimental. Dad's face is as red as a monkey's, but while the atmosphere is good, pass some more true key. I feel like I haven't digested the lightning just now. My face turned black looking at the beautiful Jiu Kingan in front of me, and then think of that bastard son. Okay, I'll be the father, but I've decided when this kid is born, the first thing I will do is to spank his ass.
I thought the world would be quiet for a few days. After all, I have shown in public.
Showing the inhuman method of swallowing the Jimile. Means of mine, but I still underestimated those old guys in
their morbid obsession with ascension.
In their eyes,
I'm just a golden shining lump.
And a walking panacea.
At this, Kingan threw a stack of golden message talismans in front of me, which was stuffed through the gap of King Yoon's sex. Slipped through the gap, I opened it and saw, good heavens, the conditions written on it were so dazzling. As long as I want, I could stay in their sect for a while, and spit twice in their forbidden area. They would offer half of their town treasure. This is clearly treating me as a human catalyst. I snorted coldly. I tore the community talisman into Jiu Kingan sat beside me. His breath has become much more stable now. His expression seemed to have entered a short period of sleep. Even his mother, Jiu, also showed a hint of laziness. Jiu Kingan lightly tapped the table, and his sword intent was, we need to leave King Yoon's sect for a while. I was stunned, asking where to go. However, I didn't expect Jiu Kingan wants to take me to the secret realm. The child needs more and more energy. The spiritual veins of King Yoon's sect are almost drained. If we stay here, the sect's foundation will be destroyed by him, and Jiu Kingan could feel that. His bottleneck of realm was loosening. I smiled bitterly. This is the gap. I was blown up and felt sore all over, but he was about to break through. He will break through while lying. Late at night, 3 days later, Jiu Kingan and I left quietly at night. Ching Feng did it to hide his identity. I deliberately changed into a mortal outfit with no spiritual and put on a pair of beards. As for Jiu Kingan, used his powerful cultivation and became a young casual cultivator who looked refined. Of course, the only anomaly was his belly that couldn't be concealed. Shinhan gave me a look, with a hint of imperceptible cunning in his eyes. My identity is defined as a poor casual cultivator with a wife. I thought, who is the poor cultivator? Who can bring a wife in the perfect fusion? If we meet some unwise thieves, he probably wouldn't even have a chance to Our first stop is the Star Sea of Sorrow. Here is a ruin left over from the ancient battle between gods and demons. Space cracks are dense, but it also produces titwali, mine called. It's in the belly, the dessert that the little ancestor specifically asked for. As soon as we stepped on the edge, I felt several malicious spiritual senses sweep over me. 3 loose cultivators in golden came out from behind the rocks, holding strange-shaped magic tools. With greedy eyes, swept over the bundle behind Jiu Kingan, indicating that the Yongxing Sea is such. Why don't you leave the package? They would keep me safe out of this sea. Before I could speak, Jiu Kingan sighed gently, saying that the little guy was hungry. I silently mourned for a second, then I took a skillful step forward to the 3 casual and gave them a gentle smile. I need something. Before they could react, the barren energy in my body gushed out like a tide, without my own action. The airflow was like a shark, smelling blood, and instantly wrapped around their natal magic tools, with a rip under their terrified gaze. The spiritual energy that was priceless in them suddenly lost their luster, turned into scrap iron, and the spiritual charm turned into 3 streamers, and directly entered Jiu Kingan's stomach. My Ching Feng sword, and my 8 trigrams, the 3 screamed, and collapsed to the ground. I clapped my hands, turned to look at Jiu Kingan, and shrugged helplessly. Jiu Kingan smiled slightly. At that moment, the dim light in the secret realm seemed to brighten a little. Then Jiu Kingan's gaze was sharp. It was the real master. I followed his gaze and I saw a huge star pillar rising. A huge pillar of starlight rose into the sky, accompanied by an ancient and terrifying aura. It was a sign of the birth of the star sparkle, but the voice in my head became urgent. Dad, run. There's a big guy under that thing. It's not awake yet, but the smell it brought was so bad. My face changed. What could make the fearless spirit fetus say it stinks? Except those ancient evil things that accept. What else could it be? However, at this moment, the entire Yongxing Sea trembled violently. A huge green hand like an island suddenly emerged from the sea, and grabbed the pillar of stars tightly. I looked at the giant hand that covered the sky, and then looked at my Kulshan at the early stage of infant. I was tightly protected by Jiu Kingan. His Shuangan sword has turned into a dense sword net, blocking the gale that could tear people apart. Outside,
Jiu Kingan's expression was extremely stern. His slender fingers like jade were white from excessive force. He knew that
this evil spirit was attracted by the heart marrow or
his soul locked on this area. We can't escape. We can only fight. I looked at the vein mother.
It's crystal clear like a falling star,
and the alluring aroma it emits even made my barren infant began to become restless. Dad, go ahead. This lobster is just an empty shell. His soul has been hurt. He is afraid of your back. Quickly grab that shiny stone over there. I feel that after eating it, I'll be able to grow feet. The little ancestor in my mind is already rolling on the ground excited. I don't know if I will grow feet, but I feel like my legs are about to fail. I gritted my teeth. Retreating at this time is death. I bit my tongue hard, and a mouthful of Baron Essence blood sprayed. The originally greyish aura, after touching my source essence blood, instantly turned into a deep and strange black like ink.
At the moment when the giant hand was about to crush the All-Mother,
I rushed out of the sword net in one step. I turned into a black light,
straight towards the huge green finger gap.
When my palm with the Baron energy pressed against the skin as big as a city wall, the mighty savage beast, it trembled violently. It was a restraint from the depths of the soul. Its vitality is too strong,
so vigorous that it was like a pile of hay piled up. And my Baron aura
is just a spark falling into the haystack.
I shouted angrily,
and the vortex in my body spun.
Before the wild beast could react to what happened, the spiritual energy in its body surged like a flood, rushed into my body through my arm like a flood, after a turn,
and poured into Ji Yukingen's stomach in a rush.
With a hum, the heart marrow mother seemed to be pulled by something. It shrank directly to the size of a fist, turned into a stream of light and got into Ji Yukingen's arms. The beast let out a reluctant wail. The huge cyan arm quickly shriveled in full view of everyone, and finally turned into a sky full of dissipating in the sea breeze. The whole place was silent. Those cultivators who escaped death looked at me like a ghost. Looked at me, a casual was seeking a doctor. I got the vein. I hadn't even caught my breath. I felt a tightness around my waist. Ji Yukingen teleported to my side in an His face was so red that it was about to bleed. His originally cold eyes were full of panic. I looked down and my back was instantly soaked. Chingen's originally bulging abdomen was now emitting a brilliant purple gold light. The light was too bright, and even directly pierced through his robe. A destructive life wave is brewing frantically. Daddy? Oh my god, I'm too full. I'm about to give birth. Find a place where no one is. I feel like I can't hold it anymore. The voice in my head was already filled with crying. I was completely stunned at this time. In this star sea full of enemies. You told me you were going to be born. I picked up Ji Yukingen in a hurry. I didn't care about keeping a low profile. I directly burned the beast essence I just grabbed.
A black and desolate cloud rose from his feet, and turned into a meteor in the horrified eyes of countless cultivators,
and fled towards the deepest part of the secret realm.
All I can think of now is that I just hope this little ancestor will be careful. Before it's born, it'll shatter your parents to pieces. At this time, Ji Yukingen in my arms.
The hand holding my collar was tightening.
His forehead, which was always spotless,
was covered in sweat.
Gritting his teeth, he whispered in my ear, Zhongcheng, if I can't survive, you should take the child and run as far as possible. With me here, none of you will die. My grayish and desolate aura, at this moment, evolved into a vibrant green color. I held Ji Yukingen
in the depths of this secret realm called Luangsing Death,
and rushed wildly around us,
which are enough to shatter the space storm of infant monks.
But at this time, when the storm was approaching us by 100 feet,
were melted by the purple gold divine light from you.
Dissolved alive. This is not just pregnancy. It's like having a collapsing small universe inside. I found a natural meteorite cave and
I casually set up a few restrictions made of barren gas.
But as soon as I put it down, the movement in my stomach reached its peak. Dad can't hold on. The energy of this All-Mother is too... My digestive system is about... I need to borrow your barren origin. It might be a little painful. Just bear with it. I haven't had time to complain about the pain. A sense of tearing like never before burst out from my dantian. I felt like a precision instrument being violently every vein, every drop of blood was being pulled out by an invisible... Sucked out crazily. I couldn't help but let out a low growl.
I saw the grey desolation around me condensed into
visible silk threads,
and all ended at Ji Yukingen's dantian.
At that moment, my consciousness seemed to penetrate the I saw a very shocking picture. In Ji Yukingen, the vast sea-like center of his primordial mana, a little man wearing a purple gold, a little man about the size of a palm, was waving a dark golden sword condensed from a dark golden small sword condensed. His eyebrow was a replica of my face.
While devouring the barren air, I sent him with his mouth open.
While slashing in the vast sea, every swing, Ji Yukingen's mana in his body condensed a bit. With a boom, an indescribable pressure wave suddenly exploded from Ji Yukingen's body.
I was directly overturned on the stone wall by this wave.
My internal organs were displaced, but I didn't care about pain. I stared wide-eyed at this scene. Ji Yukingen floated in the air. His black hair turned into dazzling silver threads in an instant.
Instead of ordinary frost, sword energy, but the charm of the Great Way with a hint of divinity.
Moya stage, at this chaotic moment of giving birth, thanks to the crazy tossing of his troublesome son, he has crossed countless cultivators.
The last threshold that countless...
Ji Yukingen slowly landed, his originally cold eyes
now as deep as the starry sky.
He looked down, looked at his still towering, but gradually calmed down, with his eyes complex to the
purple gold light faded. The milky voice sounded again, with a lazy feeling of being full and drunk. It's so close, I almost became the first one. God who miscarries because of my parents have broken through. I have also completed the second stage. Now our family of 3 is in this secret realm. We can walk sideways here, rubbing my aching waist. A cool touch came from my cheek. I was stunned. Ji Yukingen actually reached out, gently stroked my face. This one, the master who once wanted to kill me with a sword. The tenderness in his eyes was a real tenderness. I pointed to the hole, although there are barriers, but I could feel that, due to the movement of breaking through the Mahayana. Almost all the powerful people in the secret realm are rushing towards here crazily. I know they want this spirit platform. Ji Yukingen picked up the frost sword on the ground, but at this moment, the sword can no longer be called. After being baptized by the divine light, the sword body was flowing with an ancient dark gold. Runes, the spiritual pressure it emits makes the space slightly distorted. I sneered and slowly stood up.
Although I look very embarrassed now.
And my cultivation base has dropped to the bottom.
But I discovered a very interesting thing.
The energy game just now has undergone a qualitative change in my body. Now I am like an empty container. One can contain any violent spiritual energy and instantly transform into a barren realm. Since they think I, Jiangcheng am, the treasure that everyone can eat. Then I'll let them know how many teeth this Tong monk's flesh has. I took Jiu Kingan's hand. With the power of the great master maintained, I felt an unprecedented sense of expansion. We walked out of the cave. Under the starry sky, there were dozens of nascent infants floating densely, and even monsters in the God transformation stage
were greedily staring at Jiu Kingan's stomach.
Seeing this, Jiu Kingan, without even lifting his eyes, he drew his sword casually. The sword didn't make a loud noise, but only a golden thread like a silk cut through the void. With a puff, the realm of the cultivator in the God stage was as fragile as a piece of waste paper in front of it, before he could even utter a scream, and was instantly cut in half, without even escaping his soul. Jiu Kingan's voice was as cold as snow, but with an unquestionable domineering. I stood beside him. To the group of stunned experts, I gave a bright smile to them. The power of that sword, the entire Luangsing death dome, fell into a deathly silence. I looked at the remains of the deity-level expert, fell into the void. The resentment in my heart was instantly dissipated. I have to say, having a Datunsi and protective Dao companion is indeed the only consolation in this absurd life. But I didn't have time to rejoice because I felt that the palm I was holding Jiu was sending a terrifying heat through my palm. I turned my head. I found that although he stood upright, but in his star-like eyes, there was a faint golden flame in his eyes. Dad is broken. Mom broke through too hard just now. Plus my indigestion, and it has a little backlash. She's burning up inside now. If not treated, she will turn into a dacheng pancake in this stage. The voice in my head has taken on a distinct anxiety.
I wanted to curse at that time.
This damn son never let me have a moment of peace. Those who want to die. Come on, those who don't want to die. Got to scare them away. I let out a roar that was earth-shattering. With the residual power of Jiu Kingan killing the deity, I scared dozens of infant cultivators. They were scared back several. Then without a word, I directly grabbed Jiu Kingan's waist and turned into a streak of light and plunged into a spatial rift in the deepest part. Inside the crack is a static void. I just set up a barren aura. Jiu Kingan collapsed in my arms completely. His current body temperature is terrorish. Through several layers of I could feel it. Heat that was enough to melt refined iron. It was the overflow of godhood of the god fetus. Kingan gritted his teeth. With a voice as thin as a must, the child is sucking my vitality, but is spewing out fire that I can't bear. I panicked. I'm a useless cultivator. What should I do now?
Dad, you're stupid.
Your physique is ancient and barren. The most primitive and inclusive container. You quickly absorb those divine flames with your mouth. Use your mouth to suck it up. My face turned red. Use your mouth. What time is it? This little brat is still cheating on me. But when I looked at Jiu Kingan, with his already somewhat confused eyes,
I leaned over and kissed her directly. At that moment, I felt like I wasn't kissing a peerless beauty,
but kissing a volcano in eruption.
A violent energy with purple and golden light, along his lips and tongue, flooded into my body frantically. My desolate infant spirit let out a cheerful chirp, like a prisoner who had been hungry for seeing a full table of food.
The kind of divine fire that could collapse my body.
After entering my body, was instantly tamed by the desolate bear, was instantly tamed, turned into pure power, began to scour every bone in my body. Jiu Kingan's body trembled slightly. The originally anxious breath began to calm down.
His eyes gradually regained their focus.
Looking at me so close,
his eyes changed from shock and gradually turned into a near-desperate sinking.
He whispered, but took the initiative to wrap his arms. When we walked out of the space rift again, the sky outside had changed. I don't know if it's because I sucked too hard just now.
My cultivation base actually crossed the threshold.
Has inexplicably crossed the threshold of infant, to the Washin stage, and in my barren aura,
a purple gold streamer appeared. The exit of the dead realm not only did not dissipate,
but more powerful beings gathered, but also several old monsters who never show up.
One of them exudes the aura of half-step perfection.
Was staring at us coldly. The old monster spoke, whose voice was hoarse like iron sheet rubbing.
Youngster, if you now
hand over the secret method of Devourer, I might be able to leave you a whole corpse.
I let go of Jiu Kingan's hand and walked forward. This time I didn't let my master do it. I twisted my neck, feeling the explosive power in my body. A grey-purple fierceness flashed in my eyes. Now I want to try it. You old bones who have cultivated for thousands of years are enough for my son to fill his teeth. I spread my arms wide, and the barren field is open. The spiritual energy within a 10-mile radius was drained. All the cultivators were terrified to find.
Their infant spirits were actually shrinking.
The mana they had painstakingly cultivated were flowing towards me uncontrollably through pores. I'm like a black hole walking on Earth. Wherever I pass by, the void withers and everything dies. The old monster wanted to resist, but found that his spells, within 3 feet of me, will automatically descend. I directly reached out and grabbed his head. I felt the surging vitality.
I transformed it into the purest nutrients
and feed it back to Jiu King. At this moment, I looked down at the immortals kneeling. A sense of pride rose in my heart like never before. What disrespect for teachers and ruined reputation. Fuck them all. From today on, whoever dares to touch my world, I will suck dry their sect. I turned around. I looked at Jiu Kingan, who although had a big belly, but still looked charming. I raised my brow. I planned to take my wife and child to raid the Shenwu sect's treasury. Jiu Kingan looked at me. A smile like a girl for the first time. A youthful and lively smile. She gently stroked her belly, indicating that she would listen to me. Shenwu sect is the hardest bone in this realm. It is rumored that their sect's mountain god array, made of the essence of Qianzhan Tai, which was refined by the masters of the sect. It's so strong that even space cracks can't penetrate. But now Jiu Kingan and I are standing at Shenwu sect at the Zhuanti mountain gate, known as the Unbreakable Gate. Jiu Kingan has fully entered the role of a good helper, although his cultivation in the Mayana period. But at this moment he stood obediently half a step behind me, and even holding in his hand a 100-year-old Juguo fruit picked on the roadside, and was crunching it. I told my wife, "We are not robbing. It's called resource integration." I patted myself. That was no longer a nascent infant, but a godlike figure with an indistinct golden body. Patted my You see, our son just said that. The 10,000-year-old Yunti mother vein. Contains the metal essence. Can be used to forge the keel of his innate Tao base. We can't let our child be born without calcium. Dad, stop talking nonsense. I smell it. Is right behind that big iron gate. Chun my little money-making assistant in my head, has already started drooling. I took a deep breath and took a step forward. The doorposts have, shall I say, supple for patrolling, were trembling like sieve at this time. The giant swords they used to be proud of, now they couldn't hold it steady. They were scared and kept backing away. I smiled gently, but in their eyes, this was probably the devil's smile. I told them that I just want to borrow something from their suzerain. If he's not here, I can borrow from your gate. I slowly raised my right hand. The grey-purple desolate vortex in the palm of my hand instantly formed. This time I didn't use brute force to hit, but gently pressed on the door, the so-called thousand mortal black iron gate. There was no earth-shattering explosion. Only a sour, dissolving sound was heard. In the eyes of countless disciples, in horror and dying eyes, the door that could withstand the tribulation, a full-force attack, in just a few breaths, turned from dark black to grey-white. Finally, like the sand that had been dried for thousands of years, it shattered into flying ashes with a crash. The essence of gold inside turned into a dark golden torrent along my arm and directly rushed into Jiu Kingan's stomach. In my mind,
I heard a very loud burp in my head.
When the sect leader Tuoba Heng rushed out, he saw that the ancestral gate had turned to ashes. He, a half-step great perfection expert. His muscles were trembling with anger at this time. The giant axe in his hand was buzzing. But he didn't dare to take a step forward, because he saw Jiu Kingan and saw the purple gold divine light. The purple gold divine light that hadn't fully seeing the master coming out. I shamelessly said that. My wife is pregnant with 6 months, and weak, and needs nurse. Your Shenmue Sect's iron mother is rusting here. Why not fulfill this fairy tale of love? Tuoba Heng's eyes cracked, just about to yell at me. Suddenly, a strange fragrance came. The originally cloudless sky. A golden crack suddenly appeared in the sky. A huge crane carried a messenger, carrying a messenger in a white jade robe, and descended slowly. At that moment, all the noise stopped, because it was the breath of the fairy world inspector. Mortals like Jiang Cheng, Jiu Kingan and others, disrupting the order, abuse the barren evil force, and steal the spirit of heaven. The fairy world order you to surrender quickly, and go to the immortal pool. The voice of the envoy, with a sense of authority that cannot be resisted. The people of the God Wuzong instantly revealed a gloating expression. I felt Jiu Kingan's hand tighten slightly. Short intent condensed again, but I patted his hand and said, I looked up at the high-ranking messenger. I exhaled a smoke ring. I pointed to Jiu Kingan's belly, indicating that a fairy would bully a pregnant woman. If it gets out, it will be a joke. Dad, the immortal energy on this birdman is so high. Do I want it or not? The voice in my head has taken on a certain extremely excited scream, and even made my sea of consciousness. I sighed. This batch of immortals really have bad luck. I looked up sharply. My eyes glowed with grey light, even overshadowing the golden immortal light. I knew that there was no reason with this so-called. There is no reason to talk. At this moment, I no longer suppressed the barrigen in my body.
I turned into a grey lightning
and directly rushed towards the fairy envoy. The so-called status suppression, in the face of my barren gas that can turn everything, is like trying to freeze magma with ice cubes. The immortal shouted and raised his hand to strike a thunder. But before the lightning hit me, I saw the purple gold light in Jiu Kingan's stomach flashed brightly. A phantom golden hand broke through the space and pinched it on the thunder with a snap. The immortal lightning and shiny fragments, before they fell, I just rolled it up casually and stuffed them all in my arms. I shouted, let my wife catch it. Jiu Kingan opened D with and absorbed all the thunder fragments. His great perturbation once again rose at this moment. The divine aura became stronger and stronger. I had already rushed to the immortal envoy. I looked at the white and flawless crane and showed a Volf-like smile. My lord fairy envoy, your bird looks quite nourishing. I put one hand on the envoy's shoulder and grabbed the neck of the crane with the other. At that moment, in the appeared a scene that everyone, unforgettable scene. The originally sacred and inviolable fairy messenger was like a deflated ball, and the immortal light leaked wildly, and the proud crane didn't even have time to cry. Quickly shriveled down, the immortal cried out. He found that his immortal personality was collapsing. The majestic immortal energy flowed through my body and continuously poured into Jiu Kingan's body. At this moment, his silver hair, and behind him, a phantom of thousand-handed cannon appeared faintly. As time passed by, I slapped him down from the sky and smashed beside next to the gate of the ruined sect. I landed beside Jiu Kingan before I could catch my breath. I found his body started to tremble violently. The belly that had only been bulging. There was a tiny crack in his stomach. It wasn't his clothes that were, but the void cracked. Dassy daddy, I've gone too far. I inhaled too much. I'm going to break out of the shell early. Hearing this, my face turned pale instantly. Before I could react, the sky was suddenly covered with dark, 9 black dragons as long as 10,000 feet, pulling a bronze coffin with eternal death aura, breaking the border and crashed down on top of the God Martial sect. Tuoba Heng collapsed to the ground, and teeth chattering, I looked at the coffin, and then looked at Jiu Kingan, the belly that was about to burst. I cursed in my heart. You were born, just born. Why did you call so many neighbors here? At this time, the coffin rubbed against the void, sparking a harsh sound. Every impact felt like a blow to my soul. The bronze coffin exuded was not the ordinary evil spirit, but an extreme, the breath of extinction in all things. The remaining disciples of Shenmue have begun to kneel in clusters. Even their breathing was forcibly cut off by the pressure. 9 dragons pulling cork to escort the sky. Tuoba Heng, the sect leader, murmured in a trance.
They don't understand. This is the legend. The burial that only appears when a saint dies. Why would it appear here? At this moment, I don't care if it's a funeral or a gift. I only saw Jiu Kingan's face. Has become extremely ugly.
The purple gold light in his abdomen seemed to meet trial enemy.
Is shrinking inward frantically. Dad, hurry. There is a reincarnation fruit in it. The coffin-pulling man from the wants to use me as a lacris.
To make up for the rhyme of the ancient poem,
you quickly lift the lid, or my son will be buried with me as a sax.
The childish voice in my head for the first time.
For the first time with panic, and even a hint of crying, I was instantly furious. I stepped on the void sharply. I didn't care about my cultivation in the god stage.
I directly burned all the barren origin in my body.
I turned into a grey hurricane. against the Jimo wine that could tear apart the body of a Mahayana monk. I went upstream, straight towards the bronze coffin. The closer I got, the more I felt the coldness from the depths of my soul. Although the 9 black dragons are just illusions, but each scale is engraved with ancient curse runes. I roared loudly.
My fists were wrapped in the grey-purple barren gas, and smashed it hard on the hand of the dragon closest to me.
With a bang, the originally invincible black dragon phantom, the moment it touched my barren breath, let out a shrill scream of pain.
My physique is the source of the void.
Although the breath of extinction is powerful,
but in seniority, he has to call my Wong Wuki as my ancestor. I jumped on the dragon's head. I was lying on the coffin, on the icy bronze coffin lid. Who dares to disturb the sleep? A dull roar came from inside the giant coffin, which made my 7 orifice, and my eyes were about to pop out. I am your uncle Jiangcheng. I gripped the coffin fungsi with both hands, and my meridians were popping out due to overuse. I felt the barren golden pill in my body was on the verge of collapse, but I couldn't care less. At that moment, I felt like I wasn't lifting the coffin, but lifting the weight of an entire realm. The immortal energy, earth essence, even, and the residual cultivation of the immortal envoy I sucked, all turned into pure brute force at that moment. With a creak, I pried open the bronze coffin lid.
A 3-finger-wide gap appeared.
A rich and almost substantial cyan smoke spurted out from the gap. It wasn't poison gas, but the purest primitive reincarnation force. As soon as the green smoke appeared,
without my guidance,
they were like flies smelling fresh meat, swirling towards Jiu Kingen below, to be exact, but towards his stomach. Jiu Kingen was infused with that power. His silver head, the phantom of thousand-handed pure, was not suppressed, but instead, because of his began to grow wildly.
Dad, enough.
Enough, run away. The old monster inside is about to wake up. I want to run, but my hands are stuck to the coffin board like glue. A dry and bony hand and tightly grasped my wrist. At that moment, I felt my soul was about to be pulled out by that hand. Those who defy God die. The voice from the coffin was hoarse and old, with a majesty of judging the universe. A flash of grey light in my eyes. Since I can't run, I'll suck you to death. I directly held the withered hand backhand. The barren vortex in my body was at its peak. I don't care who is lying inside, nor which evil spirit it is, as long as it's empty. I'll keep all the energy today. Desolate star sucking, and reverse the unit. At that moment, I was like a pump connecting the ancient saint. And the gods. Crazy power passed through my body, and my bones were rattling with the shock. I felt like I was about to explode. But seeing below, Jiu Kingen's face gradually turned from pale to rosy. My heart became firm. If you want me dead, you'd better see how much flesh you have left. In the midst of the master's furious roar, I forcibly pulled it out of him. I pulled out a crystal emitting colorful light. It was the seed of reincarnation. As I forcibly pulled out the crystal, the whole formula and acts began to shake violently. Then, like ice and snow under the scorching sun, and melted fast, I held the colorful crystal, fell from 10,000 meters in the air like a shell, and hit the ground heavily in front of Jiu Kingen. Take it to the child. Before I could finish, the crystal in my hand automatically flew into his stomach. At that moment, the world changed. The dark clouds was instantly torn apart by a purple light from outside. A scent that cannot be described filled the entire ruins of the divine. Even the Kingyun sect, thousands of miles away, could hear the ethereal music. A cry resounded throughout the universe. The cry contained an extremely terrifying spiritual pressure, which directly turned the surrounding ruins into dust. Jiu Kingen's body was suspended in the air. In the red dress, looked sacred and inviolable in the glow of the dawn. In the midst of the flying petals, a chubby little baby, on his forehead, with a pair of dark golden little feet on his forehead, just appeared in his arms out of thin air. As the child landed, a golden lotus grew under his feet. When he opened his eyes, with barrenness and death in the left eye, and the right eye contains life, I collapsed on the ground, looked at the little ancestor who has been bothering me. I was about to cry and say, "You finally came out," but the baby tilted his head to look at me, and then looked at the sky. Then it stretched out a chubby little hand, pointing to the sky, and called out, "Daddy." The old man who pulled the coffin just now didn't give a red on. Let's go and grab. Jiu Kingen was also stunned. He looked down at the baby in his arms who was grabbing for everything, and then looked at me who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. He couldn't help but burst into laughter. This smile melts the ice and snow, and flowers bloom, but I know that the embarrassing life of mine has probably just entered the second stage.